Officer Keegan's fist slammed into Jordan Carter's cheek hard enough to whip his head back. The 18-year-old, already cuffed, steadied himself before being shoved into the rear seat like cargo. Jordan breathed slow, eyes shut, certain the cops teaching a random black kid a lesson had just detonated their careers. They'd assaulted the only son of the state attorney general, catastrophically. The basketball's steady bounce matched Jordan's pulse as he headed home from practice. Late-day light stretched long across tidy streets, gilding lawns and mailboxes, while sweat still clung to his skin under cooling air. He nudged his headphones, letting Kendrick Lamar settle his nerves, replaying drills and makes in his mind. Coach Harper had praised his deep shots, hinting Jordan might start Friday against Westside. Starting as a junior sounded like destiny, another line beside his 3.9 GPA in volunteer hours at the community center. He rolled his shoulders, shifted his gym bag, and checked the time. Dinner was 6:30, and his father, Attorney General Daniel Carter, treated punctuality like a virtue carved in stone. Jordan had grown up watching integrity win cases, lessons that shaped him as he turned. Maple Street carried him from the busy school zone into wealthier quiet. The change wasn't loud, just unmistakable. Deeper setbacks, wider lawns, fewer walkers, more polished SUVs resting in driveways. He'd walked this way 100 times and barely noticed anymore. Still, occasional stares followed him on weekend runs, as if he were a question mark in motion. Then red and blue reflections flickered. A cruiser crawled half a block behind him, and Jordan's chest tightened on instinct. He'd inherited caution the way other kids inherited eye color. Through talks, his father repeated like prayers. Be respectful, hands visible, no sudden moves, and above all, stay calm. Jordan lowered his volume, kept walking, and tracked the cruiser in his peripheral vision, debating whether to call home. It crept closer until it matched his stride. He told himself it was nothing. Routine patrol, bored officers. Then the car slid beside him, and the passenger's stare felt like a spotlight. The cruiser eased ahead, angled hard to the curb, and blocked his path. Jordan stopped, slipped his headphones down to his neck, and remembered his father's voice. Hands where they can see. Two officers stepped out in practice sync. The driver, stocky and ruddy, wore Rourke on his nameplate, one hand lounging near his holster. The passenger, Keegan, drifted left to flank. "Afternoon," Officer Rourke said, neutral tone, sharp eyes. "Mind telling us what you're doing in this neighborhood?" Jordan felt that familiar stomach drop, being asked to justify existing. He kept his face calm and voice polite. "Walking home from basketball practice, sir. I live a few blocks away." Keegan moved closer, scanning his bag, his phone, his build like inventory. "Got ID?" Jordan shook his head. "No, sir. I came from practice. My house is on Oakwood Drive, 3 blocks up." Their shared glance was a verdict, skepticism sharpened into suspicion. He'd been stopped before, but this felt different. Hungrier, meaner. "No ID, huh?" Rourke's voice tightened. "Convenient, and we're supposed to believe you live in Oakwood Estates?" Jordan swallowed and stayed steady. "Yes, sir. 6 years. 347 Oakwood Drive, the blue colonial with white trim." Keegan took a step closer, invading space on purpose, testing reactions. "Name?" "Jordan Carter." Keegan's mouth curled. "And what's your dad do to buy $1 million house, Jordan?" The way he said his name carried disbelief like a blade. "He works for the state," Jordan answered, vague by design. Sometimes titles escalated things. Rourke snorted. "State worker, huh? Janitor? Maintenance? The contempt was the point. Streetlights blinked alive as daylight drained away. A car passed slow, the driver watching. Jordan felt exposed, aware how easily strangers might read this as trouble instead of a kid going home. Silence stretched, tense and deliberate. Jordan kept his hands visible, still a stone because he knew the next move was theirs. His future balanced on choices he couldn't control. Rourke circled him with heavy steps, boots scraping the sidewalk like a threat. Keegan hovered too close, face to face, turning an investigation into something predatory under dimming light. "Here's what I think," Rourke said behind him. "You're casing houses, looking for an open window." Jordan's heart hammered, but he answered evenly, "No, sir. I live here." "Walk me home," Jordan offered, careful. "My father can verify." Keegan scoffed, breath hot. "Escort you like we're chauffeurs?" Then he yanked Jordan's bag off his shoulder. Keegan unzipped it and dumped contents onto the sidewalk with rough hands. A calculus book came up first. He waved it like a joke. "Look at this scholar, Rourke." He tossed it back. "Please be careful," Jordan said quietly, strain showing. "I haven't done anything wrong." Rourke stepped in. Hard expression. "Wrong? Trespassing, lying, and that attitude you're giving." Jordan stared ahead, not at their eyes. Another survival rule. "I'm not giving attitudes, sir. I live here." Keegan finished rifling, found nothing, and snapped his attention to Jordan's pockets. "Empty 'em!" Jordan moved slowly, producing only a phone, a house key, and loose change. Keegan snatched the phone, flipping it over like stolen goods, looking for a story to fit. The lock screen showed Jordan with his father at a fundraiser. "Fancy phone for a kid," Keegan said. "Where'd you steal it?" Jordan's patience frayed. "It's mine. Birthday gift." Another car rolled past, slowing with concern. For a second, Jordan hoped a witness might stop. Rourke's glare chased the car onward. Jordan tried again. "Call my dad. The number's here." "Or walk me home," he pressed. "It's minutes away." Keegan's hand clamped on his upper arm, bruising. "Telling us how to do our job?" The grip said, "We control you." Jordan winced but stayed still, remembering the harshest lesson: don't resist, even when they're wrong. "I respect your authority," he said. "I'm explaining." Rourke leaned close, voice rising. "We've got a suspicious person, no ID, in a high-value neighborhood, mouthing off." He nodded to Keegan. "Let's continue downtown." Keegan twisted Jordan toward the cruiser. "Please," Jordan said, alarm threading his control. "Just call my father. He'll worry." Keegan mocked him, shoving. "Should have thought about that before wandering where you don't belong." Jordan stumbled, caught himself, careful not to look resistant. Finally, he gambled the truth. "My father is Daniel Carter," he said. "He's the state attorney general." Their freeze lasted a breath. Then Rourke's face darkened. "You think that's funny? Lying about who your daddy is?" Jordan's dread turned icy. "I'm not lying. Verify it." Rourke grabbed his shirt and slammed him to the cruiser. "One more word and I'll add impersonating an official," Rourke growled, forearm pinning Jordan's chest. Jordan fought panic, feeling the metal bite his back, realizing truth had made it worse. "Hands on the vehicle," Keegan ordered, kicking Jordan's feet apart. Jordan complied, fingers spread on cold paint, body positioned in ritual vulnerability. Rourke stood watch, hand near his holster. Keegan's pat-down abandoned professionalism for intimidation. Rough palms, sharp pressure, needless force. Jordan pressed his forehead to the cruiser, eyes shut, breathing through humiliation, trying to disappear inside calm. "Nothing," Keegan announced, almost disappointed. "No weapon. No drugs." Rourke's grunt sounded annoyed, like innocence was an insult. "Turn around," he snapped, and Jordan moved slowly. Rourke's face was flushed with anger that didn't match reality. "Still sticking with that Oakwood story? Still claiming your dad's the big shot AG?" Jordan kept his voice level. "It's true. Verify it." Rourke shoved him into the cruiser again. "Cut the crap! You think we don't know who the Attorney General is?" Pain jolted through Jordan's spine. He swallowed, forcing calm that tasted like blood. "Please," he said, "call the number in my phone or drive me home. It's 5 minutes." Rourke turned to Keegan with exaggerated disbelief. "Hear this kid, acting like he's somebody." Keegan smirked. "Yeah, and I'm the governor." Then the offer came, syrupy and cruel. "Drop the act. Tell us where you really live, where you got that phone, and maybe we help you." Jordan's control cracked into frustration. "I told you, this is my neighborhood. I'm trying to go home." Rourke leaned in, breath hot. "You calling us liars, boy?" The word hit like a slap. History and degradation packed into 2 syllables. Jordan bit his cheek, keeping words caged. Keegan circled. "Nothing to say now? Cat got your tongue?" Jordan took a breath and chose procedure. "I want to call my father," he said, quieter but steady. "I have the right to a call." Rourke laughed. "You watch too much TV. You're not arrested, so you don't get that yet." "Right now, you're just suspicious," Rourke continued, "and you've lied and given attitude." Jordan's patience frayed. He glanced at Rourke's badge number, trying to memorize it like a lifeline. "So you're staring at my badge?" Rourke snapped. "You planning a complaint?" Then he barked, "Hands behind your back." Cold fear washed over Jordan as cuffs appeared, like inevitability. "On what charge?" Jordan asked, already complying because survival demanded it. Keegan answered quickly, "Suspicious activity, trespassing, interfering." His grip was rough, dragging Jordan's arm back. The cuffs bit down, too tight, deliberate pain. Jordan muttered an exhausted curse under his breath. An instant regret. Keegan's voice softened dangerously. "What was that? You got something to say?" Jordan shook his head. "No, sir." Keegan spun him to face him. "I heard you." Then Keegan's fist crashed into Jordan's cheekbone, snapping his head aside, turning the street into a ringing blur. Pain exploded. Jordan staggered. Keegan advanced, snarling about respect. Jordan's cuffed hands rose instinctively to protect his face, a reflex Keegan weaponized. "He's resisting!" Keegan shouted. Keegan grabbed Jordan by the throat as Rourke joined in. They forced him down hard. Knees, shoulder, pavement, burying him under adult weight. Jordan gasped, trying to find air without moving wrong. Any shift became resisting. Rourke yelled loud for an audience, crafting a story as his knee pressed into Jordan's back. Keegan pinned Jordan's head to concrete. "I'm not resisting," Jordan rasped. Warm blood seeped down his face from the split cheek. "Shut up," Keegan hissed, grinding Jordan's cheek into grit. The absurdity, handcuffed, pinned, still fighting, wasn't funny here. Breath became work. Jordan understood how the scenes ended for kids who looked like him. His father's voice cut through panic. "Stay alive. Nothing else matters." Jordan forced his body to go limp. "That's better," Rourke said, sickly satisfied. "Now tell the truth," Jordan repeated, slurred through swelling. "Jordan Carter. Daniel Carter's my father. Attorney General, 347 Oakwood Drive. Rourke grabbed Jordan's hair and yanked his head up. Still sticking with that? Jordan blinked blood from his eye. It's true. Please call him. Please take me home. Their shared glance was unreadable. Then they hauled him up like a rag doll. Keegan shoved him towards the cruiser. Fine, tough guy. We'll sort it downtown. Across the street, a woman walking a dog watched, worried and frozen. Jordan's hope sparked. He met her eyes like a plea. As they neared the car, Jordan called out, voice strained but clear, asking her to call the Attorney General's office and say he'd been taken. A brutal hit to his kidney cut him off mid-sentence. Jordan folded, air leaving. "Shut your mouth," Rourke hissed, forcing his head down and stuffing him into the back seat. The door slammed final. Through the window, Jordan saw the woman hesitate. The officers spoke to her briefly, quick, confident lies. And whatever they said, worked. She continued walking, glancing back once, concern fading into helpless distance. Behind the plastic partition, Jordan finally felt the full weight of it. His face throbbed, blood still sticky. His wrist burned where cuffs had carved. His back ached where a knee had ground him down. He touched his cheek gently and winced. Swelling was already blooming into a bruise. He pictured dinner at home, plates cooling, his father checking the clock, worry rising with every quiet minute. Part of him wanted to scream, to rage, to demand fairness. The wiser part stayed silent. This wasn't where you fought. As the engine started, he shut his eyes and drew on practiced composure. His father had told him, "It's not about fairness, it's about survival. Get home alive, then we fight the right way." The cruiser rolled away, carrying him farther from safety with each streetlight passed. In that widening distance, Jordan made a promise he could hold even in pain. He would survive, and they wouldn't bury this with paperwork and smirks. Accountability would come because his family knew how. The ride blurred into throbs and copper taste. Up front, Rourke and Keegan laughed, their banter grotesque against Jordan's bruised silence. The sound scraped him raw, as if cruelty were a casual hobby. Bet he won't claim he's the AG's kid now," Rourke said, loud enough to pierce the partition. Keegan chuckled. "Rich or not, they bleed the same." Jordan stared at nothing, jaw tight. The cruiser turned into the station lot under harsh fluorescence. Rourke yanked Jordan out by the arm, making him stumble. "Let's go, hotshot," he growled. "Time to process you properly." Inside, the station buzzed. Phones, desks, detainees, echoes. Heads turned at Jordan's cuffed wrists and bloodied face. He kept his gaze forward, trying to hold dignity while others judged the snapshot. "Gotta live one, Sarge," Keegan called at booking. "Suspicious activity, trespassing, resisting, assaulting an officer." "Eitenain mazewod topun." The desk sergeant, older with tired eyes, studied Jordan's swelling with quiet scrutiny. "Assaulted an officer?" the sergeant asked, neutral but sharp. Which one?" Rourke answered smoothly. Both. Kid went crazy." The sergeant looked again at Jordan's lean frame versus two burly cops. "That right?" he asked Jordan. Keegan's hand clamped to Jordan's shoulder like a warning. "Don't waste time," Keegan muttered. The sergeant's pen hovered. "Name?" Jordan answered, steady despite pain. "Jordan Carter, 347 Oakwood Drive. My father is Daniel Carter, the state attorney general," he said, refusing to let the lie be written without resistance. Keegan tightened his grip, irritated by consistency. "Still that story," Keegan scoffed. The sergeant paused. Carter? Daniel Carter's son? He leaned in, reassessing features under swelling. Rourke waved it off. That's what he claims, delusional. The sergeant frowned. Did you verify identity or address? Keegan snapped. No ID. Jordan jumped in, voice firm. My wallet's at home. Please call him or take me there. I'm coming from practice. Rourke stepped between Jordan and the sergeant, controlling the narrative. Uncooperative suspect casing houses. Resisted. Assaulted. The sergeant held Rourke's gaze a long moment, then nodded. Process him. Hope deflated as Rourke grabbed Jordan's arm and steered him down a hall. This way, Junior, he said, mocking. Mugshot time. Smile for Daddy. The words were meant to bruise deeper than fists. A technician fingerprinted and photographed him with sterile efficiency. Jordan followed commands, turn, face forward, hands on scanner, feeling dignity stripped by procedure designed to make a person into a file. Keegan peered at the screen and snickered. Beautiful, he said, savoring the image of Jordan's swollen face. That'll look great for college. Then they marched him to an interrogation room like a trophy. The room was windowless, cold, with a bolted metal table and hard chairs. Rourke shoved Jordan down, removed cuffs, then snapped one cuff to a table loop anyway. Freedom granted, only to be retracted. Wait, Rourke ordered, unnecessary authority dripping off the word. The door shut, heavy. Overhead, fluorescent hum filled the silence. Jordan touched his cheek, wincing, feeling the split skin crusting. He tried to organize thoughts, but fatigue and pain blurred focus. An ordinary walk had become a nightmare built from assumptions and power. He pictured his father calling, escalating, refusing to accept silence. How long before his dad activated every contact he had? The door popped open. Rourke and Keegan returned with a plainclothes detective, badge clipped at his belt. The detective's eyes flicked to Jordan's injuries. I'm Detective Salazar, he said, settling across the table while the officers stood like sentries. I hear we've had trouble tonight. Jordan straightened, voice controlled. Yes, sir. They stopped me and assaulted me. He gestured toward his bruised face. This is from Keegan's fist, not resistance. Rourke protested immediately, flushed. Jordan countered. I complied. He hit me after I muttered under my breath. Then they tackled me while I was already cuffed, Jordan added, refusing to soften truth. Salazar's expression stayed neutral. Two very different stories, he observed, calm as a metronome. What were you doing in Oakwood Estates? Salazar asked. Jordan didn't blink. Living there, going home, 347 Oakwood Drive, Salazar repeated, measured, and your father is Attorney General Daniel Carter. Yes, sir, Salazar turned to the officers. Did you verify address, identity, escort him to the location? Keegan shifted. No ID. Convenient. Jordan held steady. I came from practice. Wallets at home. Salazar pressed them again, professional but pointed. Rourke cut in. Suspicious person, high-value neighborhood, belligerent behavior. Standard procedure to bring him in. Salazar nodded slowly, then looked at Jordan. You're entitled to a phone call, Salazar said. Who do you want to contact? Before Jordan answered, the door swung open and the desk sergeant appeared, tense in a way that changed the air. Detective, the sergeant said, ignoring the officers. His call's already been made. His father is here. Keegan snorted. Sure he is. The sergeant didn't flinch. Attorney General Carter's in the lobby. He's demanding his son and the officers, the sergeant continued. He's already called the chief. Color drained from Rourke's face. Salazar stood abruptly. "Uncuff him," he ordered. "Now!" Keegan hesitated, glancing at Rourke like a kid caught cheating. "Procedure?" Salazar cut him off. "I said now!" Keegan moved to remove the cuff, hands suddenly less confident than before. Footsteps approached, measured, purposeful, unstoppable. Jordan recognized the rhythm from home hallways and office corridors. The door opened again, and Attorney General Daniel Carter filled the frame, tall and controlled fury. His gaze swept the room, cataloging facts, then landed on Jordan's battered face. For a heartbeat, pain flickered across his features. Then composure snapped into place like armor. "Jordan," he said gently, "are you okay?" The softness nearly broke Jordan's restraint. "I'll be okay, Dad," he managed. Daniel nodded once, eyes never leaving the injuries before turning to Rourke and Keegan, who stood rigid, horror dawning. Daniel's voice went arctic. "Which one of you put hands on my son?" The question hung like a live wire. Neither officer spoke. Salazar stepped forward, trying to steady procedure, but Daniel's calm cut through him. "Detective, I appreciate your work," Daniel said smoothly, "but my question was for them." He faced the officers again. "I'll ask once. Which of you struck my son?" Rourke's training finally found his voice. "Sir, there was an altercation. Your son resisted," Rourke said weakly. Daniel's reply was precise. "My son has a split cheek and swelling that suggests blunt force." "That's not an altercation. That's a strike," Daniel continued, unblinking. "Before I review the body cam footage, which I've already ordered preserved, you have a chance to tell the truth." The words "body cam" rippled through the room like thunder. Rourke tried. "Any force was necessary." Jordan cut in, voice steady. "It was Officer Keegan who punched me. Officer Rourke held me down." Daniel nodded once, accepting the clarity without theatrics. Daniel turned to Salazar. "Release my son to my custody immediately. I want medical evaluation and documentation. I want both officers' badges and firearms surrendered pending a full investigation." Salazar hesitated, trapped by protocol. "There are procedures," Salazar began. Daniel's voice stayed even. "I helped write them. 2 officers assaulted a minor and then filed false charges. This isn't procedural. It's criminal." The room tightened. A commotion in the hall announced reinforcements. The police chief, rumpled and sweating, and a sharp-suited woman, Daniel's chief of staff, Lauren Park. The chief tried to soothe. "Let's talk in my office." "After my son gets medical care," Daniel replied, moving to Jordan and helping him up with protective steadiness. He addressed the sergeant. "Escort officers Rourke and Keegan to surrender badges and firearms." The sergeant looked to the chief. After a heavy pause, the chief nodded grimly. "Do it," he said, "and call internal affairs." The officers were led away, glare sharp, bravado gone, replaced by panic. Daniel finally focused fully on Jordan, eyes softening as he assessed damage with a father's helpless precision. "We're going to the hospital," he said quietly, arm around Jordan's shoulders like a shield. The ride to the ER ran mostly silent. Daniel drove with tight control, stealing glances at Jordan's face. As adrenaline faded, Jordan felt bone-deep exhaustion and pain radiating from every spot they'd handled him. "And I'm sorry, Dad," Jordan murmured at last. Daniel frowned. "For what?" Jordan gestured weakly. "For not calling sooner? For not avoiding it?" Daniel's voice turned firm and kind. "You did what you had to." "You survived," Daniel said. "That's the only job in that moment." At the hospital, staff moved quickly once they recognized him. A blunt, compassionate doctor cleaned Jordan's cut and decided stitches weren't necessary. She documented everything: facial contusion, wrist abrasions from tight cuffs, bruising along his back and side. "Lucky your orbital bone isn't fractured," she noted. "Ice, rest, and OTC pain relief." Daniel stepped into the hallway and made calls with clipped authority. When he returned, his expression was composed, the kind of calm that meant action was already in motion. "Records expedited," he told Jordan. "The chief placed both on administrative leave pending investigation," Daniel continued. "And I called Gabriel Reyes to meet us at home. Civil Rights Council." The name landed like confirmation. This wouldn't be buried. The drive home filled with more calls, Daniel's tone shifting between official command and paternal reassurance. He updated his wife, Judge Evelyn Carter, who waited at home, worry sharpening into controlled fury. They pulled into the Oakwood Drive driveway near midnight, the address the officers had refused to believe. Under the bright entry light, Evelyn gasped at Jordan's face, then wrapped him in careful, fierce embrace. Her composure held, but her eyes hardened. "They will answer for this," she said, not as a threat, but as a verdict. Gabriel Reyes arrived soon after, his usual warmth replaced by focused intensity. In the living room, Jordan retold the night again. Each escalation, each accusation, each blow, surprised by his own clarity. Gabriel shook his head. "They wouldn't believe the address, even when you gave it?" "They didn't want verification," Daniel corrected, voice tight. "They wanted power. They saw a black teenager in affluence and decided the story before speaking." Evelyn wrote notes, neat and relentless. "Witnesses?" Evelyn asked, looking up. Jordan remembered the woman with the dog. "She saw part of it," he said. "I called to her, but they cut me off." Gabriel nodded. "We'll find her." "Body cam, medical records, witness statements," Gabriel said, listing tools like weapons. "We build an airtight case." Jordan felt detached, like he was watching his own life from above, victim turned evidence. He'd heard legal strategy in this house before, occupational hazard of an attorney general and a federal judge, but never with him at the center. A memory surfaced. Daniel, at 12, talking about Tamir Rice, voice heavy. "The world won't always see you as I do," Daniel had told him. "They won't see your grades, your character, your future. Some will see only skin and make judgments. It's wrong, but knowing it can save you." 6 years later, the lesson had kept him alive, but it hadn't kept him untouched. Compliance, calm, truth. He'd followed the script and still ended up bloodied in a station. Injustice burned under his fatigue. "Jordan needs rest," Evelyn finally said, seeing his eyelids droop. "We continue tomorrow." Daniel agreed, hand on Jordan's shoulder. "Go sleep. Your mother and I will handle what comes next." Jordan climbed upstairs carefully, avoiding jolts to bruised ribs and aching back. Below, voices continued. Documentation turning into strategy, strategy turning into public response. They were mobilizing decades of influence and law. A strange purpose formed through the pain. What happened wasn't just personal, it was symptomatic, a sickness deeper than two officers. Survival was step one. Accountability and reform were the real fight waiting after daylight. With that thought, exhaustion finally claimed him. Downstairs, the house hummed like a war room. Daniel assembled documents. Gabriel cataloged injuries with photos. Evelyn coordinated statements and calls with crisp authority. Jordan sat at the kitchen counter with an ice pack pressed to his cheek, watching their coordinated resolve with AW and weariness. The longtime housekeeper, Ms. Delgado, fussed over him, worry soft in her eyes. "You should be in bed, mijo," she said gently, setting hot tea beside him despite the warm night. "Your parents will handle everything." Jordan managed a small, swollen smile. "I know they will. But I need to be part of this," Jordan insisted. The doorbell chimed, and Lauren Park arrived with a tight-faced man Jordan recognized as Internal Affairs Director Alan Whitaker. Their low foyer talk carried urgency. Whitaker spoke fast. Body cam files were locked down, duplicated, and secured. A preliminary watch-through matched Jordan's account, minute for minute, brutal and undeniable. Daniel Carter nodded, not surprised, only colder. "Draft formal charges by noon," Daniel said. "Assault on a minor, unlawful detention, falsified reports, civil rights violations, everything. No paid leave theater, no quiet resignation. They face consequences, publicly and fully." The house phone rang. Evelyn answered from the next room, her tone flipping from mother to judge in a breath. "Yes, Governor, Jordan's recovering. Daniel will issue a statement this morning." Jordan hadn't grasped how fast his nightmare became a state-level incident until he heard the governor's name in his kitchen. The justice system his parents served was now mobilizing around him like a machine. Daniel returned, eyes gentler on his son. "They're calling the officers in right now," he said. "They don't know what's coming. I want you resting. But your statement to Internal Affairs this morning matters." Jordan removed the ice pack, sitting taller despite the ache. "I'm ready now," he said, surprising even himself. "I want them to hear it exactly. Every shove, every lies, every punch." 2 hours later, Jordan sat in Daniel's Justice Department office, statement recorded and signed. Outside the glass walls, staff moved like clockwork, phones ringing nonstop as news spread through official channels. Lauren entered with a tablet showing headlines multiplying. "Press conference is set for 10, she told Daniel. "It's already on social media. Someone at the hospital leaked a photo of Jordan in the ER. Daniel frowned, glanced at Jordan, then scanned the screen. "Unavoidable," he murmured. "At least the injuries are clear." He passed the tablet to Jordan, who saw his own bruised face under harsh light. The caption read, "Attorney General's son allegedly beaten by police. Officers placed on leave." Lauren added, "Rourke already called the union rep. Keegan still doesn't understand. He actually reported for duty?" A knock, and Captain Maris Reynolds, composed but tense, stepped in. "Sir, Officers Rourke and Keegan are at headquarters," she reported. "They've been told they're under investigation but haven't seen footage." Daniel rose. "Separate rooms. I'll be there shortly." Then he looked at Jordan. "You don't have to attend." Jordan stood anyway, jaw set. "I want to. I want them to see me." Police headquarters buzzed like a disturbed hive as Daniel led the way, Jordan close behind, with Gabriel Reyes and Lauren flanking them like a protective formation. Conversations died as they passed. Officers straightened instinctively. Some avoided Jordan's face, others stared openly. Captain Reynolds met them at the elevator, professionalism barely masking discomfort. "Conference rooms are ready," she said, voice tight. "Rourke is in room A," she continued. "Keegan is in room B. I instructed them not to contact each other or anyone else about the incident." Daniel nodded once, curt and controlled. The elevator ride was silent, thick with contained fury. Jordan stood tall, face aching, shoulders stiff. Daniel's anger felt like weather, quiet, heavy, inevitable. The doors opened onto a corridor of glass rooms. Through one window, Jordan saw Officer Rourke alone, fingers tapping nervously. He looked smaller without his street swagger. When Rourke spotted Jordan beside Daniel, color drained from his face. "I'll speak with Rourke first," Daniel said calmly. "Jordan, you can wait with Lauren." Jordan shook his head. "No, I'm coming in. I want him to look at what he did." Inside, Rourke rose on autopilot, voice strained. "Sir, I understand there's been a complaint about last night's arrest procedure." Daniel's laugh was humorless. "A complaint?" He gestured at Jordan's bruises. My son was handcuffed and compliant," Daniel said, voice sharpening. "That is beyond a complaint." Rourke swallowed hard, eyes flicking between father and son, searching for a smaller story to tell. "With respect," Rourke began, "it was complex. We had reports of suspicious activity, and your son had no identification." Jordan cut in, steady. "Because I came from practice, I told you my address." Gabriel placed a folder on the table. "We reviewed the body cam footage," he said. "At no point did Jordan resist or threaten either of you. It shows your partner striking him while he was cuffed." Rourke's facade cracked. "Attorney General, I didn't personally hit him. That was Officer Keegan." Daniel's reply was ice. "You also didn't stop him. Then you helped tackle my restrained son. You filed a report claiming resistance," Daniel continued, voice rising for the first time. "You processed charges you knew were false." Rourke stared at the table. "I followed procedure for a suspect," he muttered. "A suspect?" Daniel snapped. "He's an 18-year-old walking home from practice in his own neighborhood to his own home. The address was correct. When does procedure require assaulting a minor?" Rourke couldn't answer. Jordan watched with detached disbelief. Last night's bully, now stammering. The power shift felt unreal, like the air itself changed density once accountability entered the room. Jordan spoke suddenly, voice quiet but sharp. "If I wasn't the Attorney General's son, what would have happened?" The question landed heavy, unavoidable. Rourke's eyes moved away, then returned with reluctant honesty. "You'd have been booked for resisting," Rourke admitted. "Maybe assault on an officer? With your clean record, probably probation, community service." Jordan repeated flatly, "For walking home, for existing here." Daniel's hand rested on Jordan's shoulder, protective, proud. "Officer Rourke, you and Officer Keegan are suspended, effective immediately, pending criminal investigation. Badges and service weapons surrendered today." "Criminal?" Rourke echoed, alarm breaking through. "Sir, this can be handled internally." Daniel cut him off. "Internally, the same way my son would have gotten a record if he weren't mine?" "No." Captain Reynolds stepped forward from the doorway. "I'll escort Officer Rourke to surrender his badge and weapon," she said. As Rourke left, shoulders sagging, Jordan felt no thrill, only a grim resolve. What haunted Jordan wasn't his bruises. It was Rourke's casual certainty about what would have happened to any other black teenager without power behind his name. That truth settled heavier than the swelling. When they were alone, Daniel asked softly, "You okay?" Jordan nodded, wincing at the movement. "Yeah, it's just strange seeing him like that after last night." Daniel's eyes stayed on Jordan's face. "Power changes fast when consequences show up," Daniel said. Then he exhaled once. "Ready for round two?" Jordan straightened despite fatigue. "Yeah, let's finish it." Officer Keegan waited in conference room B, fingers drumming with performative calm that didn't hide the unease underneath. Unlike Rourke, Keegan still wore defiance like armor. Chin up, jaw set, stubborn. That armor cracked when Daniel entered with Jordan beside him, bruises fully blooming under fluorescent light. Daniel spoke without preamble, Voice controlled authority. Officer Keegan, we need to discuss your conduct. Keegan tried professional tone. Sir, I understand there's a complaint, but I followed procedure. Daniel gestured to the chair opposite. Procedure for what? Assaulting a cuffed minor? Filing a false report? Gabriel set a laptop on the table and froze the frame, Keegan's fist connecting with Jordan's face. We reviewed everything, Gabriel said. There's no confusion. Keegan stared, then snapped back, defensive. That image doesn't show context, Keegan insisted. The suspect resisted. Daniel's voice went flat. The suspect is my son. He was handcuffed and compliant when you hit him. The footage shows it. With respect, Keegan said, leaning into justification, we didn't know he was your son. He was in a high-value neighborhood, no ID, giving attitude. Jordan's disbelief broke through. Attitude? I complied, Jordan said, meeting Keegan's eyes. I told you my address. I followed commands. Refusing to accept being treated like a criminal for walking home isn't attitude. It's being human. Keegan's gaze hardened. You muttered something. You tensed while I cuffed you. Jordan answered evenly. I flinched because you were hurting me. Even if I'd been disrespectful, that doesn't justify punching me. Daniel's hand returned to Jordan's shoulder, grounding him. Officer, Daniel said, measured and lethal. The footage shows you striking my son hard enough to risk orbital damage. It shows you tackling him restrained. It shows falsified claims that he assaulted you, Daniel continued. This is not interpretation. These are documented facts. Keegan's face shifted, something between panic and anger, as reality finally pierced his defenses. Look, Keegan said, confidential, like he expected sympathy. Things got messy, but this happens all the time. Kids talk back, claim they belong where they don't. 99% were right. Daniel's voice dropped. And that makes assault acceptable to you? You think disbelief justifies violence against a handcuffed teenager? Keegan stiffened. You don't know what it's like out there. Split seconds. I know plenty about police work, Daniel replied, colder. And I know your record. Keegan blinked. You looked me up? Daniel didn't blink back. I'm the Attorney General. Yes, I reviewed it. 3 excessive force complaints in 2 years, Daniel said, precise. All involving young black men. All dismissed in internal review. A color drained from Keegan's face. Captain Reynolds stepped forward, voice firm. Officer Keegan, you are suspended effective immediately pending criminal investigation, she said. You will surrender badge and weapon before you leave. Keegan's indignation flared. Criminal? For doing my job? Daniel's patience thinned into steel. Your job does not include assaulting minors. Your job does not include lying to cover it. These are crimes, and they will be treated as crimes. Keegan's eyes cut to Jordan, ugly resentment flickering. So the AG's kid gets special handling. Must be nice having Daddy clean your messes. Jordan stiffened, but Daniel answered first, voice dangerously quiet. This isn't special handling, Daniel said. This is accountability. The difference is that my son has resources to force sunlight onto what you've done to others in the dark. Daniel leaned in, height and authority filling the room. And if you believe I won't pursue the same justice for any victim you've harmed, regardless of name, you do not understand my office or my character. Captain Reynolds stepped closer. Officer Keegan, come with me. For a moment, it looked like he might refuse, his fists curled on the tabletop. Then defiance wilted under Daniel's stare, and he stood slowly. "This isn't right," Keegan muttered, more to himself than anyone. "It's not supposed to go like this." As he passed, Jordan's voice cut through, steady but tight with emotion. "If I wasn't my father's son," Jordan said, "you would have got away with it, like the other times. That's what isn't right." Keegan didn't answer, only darkened, and let Reynolds lead him out. When the door shut, Gabriel gathered his materials. "About as expected," he said grimly. "They don't see the problem. To them, the mistake was picking the wrong target." Daniel looked to Jordan again. "How are you holding up?" Daniel asked. "We can go home." Jordan shook his head. "I'm okay. Just tired." He paused, then asked the question, pressing his ribs. "What happens next?" Daniel checked his watch. "The chief is arriving. I want to review next steps personally. Then we prepare for the noon press conference." Jordan blinked. "Press conference?" Daniel nodded. "Yes. This isn't only about you," Daniel said, softer. "It's about preventing it from happening to others. That means making it public." He studied Jordan's face. "But you don't have to participate." Jordan's answer came steady, almost calm. "I want to be there. People need to see what happened." Pride flickered through Daniel's concern. "All right," he said. "Then we'll make sure they do." Outside, the administrative floor felt like crisis management in motion. Phones shrilling, whispers stopping mid-sentence as they passed. Through glass, Jordan saw Captain Reynolds briefing a grave-faced chief who just arrived. What began as a 15-minute walk home had become an inflection point. Jordan followed Daniel toward the chief's office, feeling responsibility settle alongside the ache in his cheek. This was bigger than one night. It was about everyone who didn't have an attorney general for a father. Everyone whose bruises never reached cameras or courtrooms. Jordan straightened, letting his face speak the story others weren't allowed to tell. The chief's office offered temporary quiet, thick door muffling the station's frantic pulse. Chief Harlan Benton, 30 years on the job, appointed 18 months earlier, sat rigid behind his desk, uncomfortable and pale. Daniel laid out the plan with no room for negotiation. "My office will oversee this to avoid conflicts. Internal affairs will collect evidence. Independent experts will analyze footage. I want both officers' full records." Chief Benton nodded, jaw tight. "We'll cooperate fully, Attorney General. I'm sorry for what happened." Jordan drifted to the window, where news vans already clustered in the parking lot like vultures. Word traveled faster than truth. Jordan pressed fingertips to his swollen cheek, pain tethering him to reality. Daniel's voice brought him back. "The chief offered us privacy before the press conference. I'll be outside." When the other stepped out, Jordan sank into a visitor chair, fatigue finally catching him now that adrenaline had nowhere to hide. Daniel chose the chair beside him instead of the chief's, leveling them as father and son. "How are you really doing?" Daniel asked, voice stripped of courtroom polish. Jordan searched for honesty beyond the automatic, "Fine." He exhaled. "I'm tired, angry, and confused." "Confused about how everything flipped," Jordan admitted. "Last night, they had all the power. Now it's reversed because of who you are." Daniel nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth without defensiveness. "If you weren't my son, this would look different," Daniel said. "That's injustice by definition." Jordan asked the question that had been burning since the station door opened last night. "So what about everyone else?" Daniel leaned forward, gaze intense. "That's why what we do next matters. There's a window because of our names. The question is how we use it to extend accountability beyond your case. Outside the office, the building grew louder. Phones, urgent footsteps, hushed clusters. Through glass, Jordan saw internal affairs investigators setting up. Their presence made regular officers visibly uneasy. First, criminal charges, Daniel said. Assault, false reports, civil rights violations, no paid leave dodge. They'll fight. They'll claim it was the job. That's why the second part matters. Public hearings, Daniel continued. Policy review. Training overhaul. A place where others can testify. Then his tone softened. And you have a choice. How public you want to be. Your face has power, but it costs. Daniel didn't sugarcoat it. Scrutiny, attacks, people digging for anything to discredit you. Jordan understood the offer. Justice without becoming the symbol. The easier road was silence, school, basketball, normal life. But Keegan's bitter line echoed. Special handling. It stung because it was partly true. Jordan lifted his eyes. I want to speak, he said, voice strengthening. Press conference, hearings, wherever it helps. Daniel searched him. Are you sure? Once it's public, there's no rewinding. Media and defense attorneys will come for you. Jordan didn't hesitate. I'm sure. You taught me privilege should be used, not hoarded. Daniel's pride flickered through worry. He squeezed Jordan's shoulder. Then we do it together. But you set boundaries. If it gets too heavy, you tell me. A knock interrupted them. Lauren entered. Urgent. Noon press conference is locked, Lauren said. All major networks confirmed. The governor called again. Supportive, but wants a briefing before you speak. She looked at Jordan with softened professionalism. You holding up? I'm okay, Jordan said. Automatic, practiced. Lauren continued. Footage is on a secure server. Gabriel thinks we should show selected clips if you approve. Daniel looked to Jordan. Your call. It's your story. Jordan's answer was immediate. Show it, he said. People need to see. Lauren nodded and typed. Another knock. Captain Reynolds stepped in. Grave. Both officers retained counsel. The union wants to talk before noon. Afterward, Daniel said, firm. This isn't bargaining. Reynolds looked relieved to have direction. Also, investigators requested full service records, including all civilian complaints. Daniel rose. Good. Give them everything. No missing files. Reynolds left. Jordan stood too, muscles stiff from the long night. The clock showed just over an hour until the press conference, an hour until his private trauma became public record. Daniel studied him. Ready? Jordan drew himself up, despite pain. Ready, he said. Together they stepped out into the storm, father and son united by blood and purpose, intent on consequences that would extend beyond their last name. The press room was packed beyond capacity. Local and national reporters, shoulder to shoulder, cameras clustered like metal flowers. A murmur rolled through the crowd as Daniel entered with Jordan beside him. Flashbulbs stuttered, capturing Daniel's posture and Jordan's bruised evidence. Daniel took the podium, measured, authoritative, while Jordan stood slightly behind and to the side, back straight, face aching, eyes steady. Last night, Daniel began, voice carrying cleanly. My 18-year-old son was walking home from basketball practice when officers Rourke and Keegan stopped him. He paused, letting the room settle into silence. Despite accurate identification and full compliance, he was handcuffed, assaulted, and arrested on fabricated charges, Daniel continued. He gestured toward Jordan, whose bruises spoke louder than legal language ever could. The incident is fully captured on body cameras, Daniel said. While my son was restrained and compliant, Officer Keegan struck him, causing significant injury. Both officers then forced him to the ground and falsified reports. Reporters scribbled. Cameras clicked continuously. Daniel's expression hardened. Today, my office will file criminal charges against both officers. They have been suspended without pay and surrendered badges and weapons. But this is bigger than one case, Daniel said, leaning slightly into the microphone. It is about patterns allowed to persist. Today I am announcing a statewide review of training, policy, and complaint handling. We will hold public hearings, Daniel continued. Citizens will testify, and every department will understand this. There is zero tolerance for misconduct and civil rights violations under my watch. The room erupted with shouted questions. Daniel raised a hand, then said, "Before questions, my son will speak." He stepped back, resting a supportive hand on Jordan's shoulder, then letting Jordan move forward alone. Jordan faced the sea of microphones and hungry eyes. He carried himself with calm that didn't erase pain, only organized it. "Last night," he began, voice steady, "I was walking home from practice. I told them who I was and where I lived," Jordan continued. "I kept my hands visible. I complied. I didn't resist." He touched the bruised edge of his cheek carefully. "This happened anyway." The simplicity hit like a gavel. Jordan added, "I'm standing here because my father is the Attorney General. Most people don't have that protection. But what happened to me happens every day." His voice strengthened. "Listen to my story, but also to the ones you never hear, because those people don't have power behind their names. What happened was wrong. What happens to others like me is wrong." A hush held for a beat, then questions exploded again. Daniel returned to the podium, fielding them with practiced precision. Jordan stood beside him, bruises refusing to let anyone hide behind euphemisms. Beyond the station walls, broadcasts rolled out in real time, Jordan's injured face appearing on screens across the state. His measured words carried into living rooms, offices, and patrol cars, impossible to dismiss as isolated. What began as one teenager's terror became a public catalyst. Jordan felt the weight settle on his shoulders alongside lingering pain. He didn't feel heroic, just resolved, anchored by the knowledge that silence helps perpetrators. As flashbulbs popped and questions flew, Jordan understood he was exactly where he needed to be, turning private injury into public proof, so the next kid without connections might still get justice. A week later, Jordan stood at his bathroom mirror, fingertips grazing the fading bruise. Purple had softened into yellow-green edges. Swelling was nearly gone. Downstairs, Evelyn cooked, and Daniel's voice carried from his office. The past 7 days blurred with speed. Rourke and Keegan were formally charged. Assault, falsified reports, civil rights violations. Their booking photos ran beside Jordan's ER image across national coverage. The police union threatened lawsuits, then retreated as public opinion turned brutal after clipped body cam segments aired. Chief Benton announced early retirement 3 days later, framed as making room. But everyone knew why. Captain Reynolds became interim chief, tasked with reforms, universal body cameras, tightened use of force rules, and an independent civilian review board. Jordan moved downstairs slowly, choosing forward motion over comfort. In the kitchen, Evelyn tried to smile through worry. "How are you feeling?" she asked, sliding the pancakes onto a plate. "Better," Jordan said, and meant it. Soreness is mostly gone. Daniel entered, ending a call with a clipped, "Keep me updated." He looked at Jordan, expression brightening slightly. "Ready for today?" Jordan nodded, then remembered what today meant. His first day back at school. His face had been everywhere. His name had become a headline. The return wouldn't be simple. Evelyn reminded him, "You don't have to do the national interview tonight if you're not ready." Jordan shook his head. "If we wait, people forget," he said. "The pressure needs to stay while attention is still here." Daniel studied him, pride and concern braided together. "You can set boundaries," he reminded. "It's allowed." "I know," Jordan said, voice older than his years. "But you taught me privilege has a duty. This is how I use it right now." The drive to school was quiet, both men thinking in parallel. A news van idled across from campus. Students lingered near the entrance, watching. Daniel pulled into the drop-off zone. "Call me if you need anything," he said. "I'll pick you up after practice." Jordan stepped out and felt whispers ripple through hallways, like wind through paper. Some classmates offered awkward support. Others stared, unsure how to talk to a kid who'd become a symbol overnight. Normality returned only in the gym. Coach Harper gathered the team and addressed it head on. "Jordan went through something none of you should," he said. "He's here because he's strong. We have his back. On this court," Coach Harper added, "we're going to let him just be a player." The declaration broke tension. Practice resumed with familiar squeaks and shouts, and for 2 hours Jordan's world narrowed to ball and breath. In motion, he wasn't evidence or headline. He was a guard reading the floor, trusting teammates, finding rhythm. The game gave him refuge, a place where his body was his own again, not a battleground. After practice, Daniel waited in the lot as promised. Gabriel Reyes beside him, proof the legal machine never slept. "How was it?" Daniel asked. Jordan exhaled. "Better than I expected. Playing helped." Gabriel smiled. "Those normal moments matter." In the car, he updated them. Internal Affairs uncovered 12 similar complaints against Rourke and Keegan over 3 years, dismissed despite witnesses and hospital records. "The pattern is ugly," Gabriel said. And 3 other young men came forward through counsel. They're willing to testify at hearings next month. Jordan listened quietly, realizing his case was becoming a doorway for others. The responsibility weighed, but purpose balanced it. At home, Evelyn coordinated with network producers for the evening interview. The dining room transformed into a temporary studio. Lights, cameras, cables invading private space. Before filming, the family gathered in the kitchen for a last quiet moment. Daniel's hand rested on Jordan's shoulder. "Share only what you want," he said. "If something feels too personal, you say so." Jordan nodded, drew a steadying breath. "I'm ready." The interview unfolded smoothly, the veteran anchor guiding their story with practiced empathy. Jordan spoke with measured dignity, honest, direct, controlled. Near the end, the anchor said, "People call you courageous. How do you see your role in this conversation on reform?" Jordan thought carefully. "I don't know about courage. I know about responsibility. What happened to me happens to people without my platform," Jordan continued. "If speaking helps stop it for someone else, then I'm obligated to speak." The anchor turned to Daniel, asking how fatherhood and office coexist. Daniel answered with calm clarity. "They align. My job is justice for citizens. My job as a father is to protect my son and teach him to stand for what's right. Here, those duties are the same." After the crew left, the house felt reclaimed, quiet, returning like a tide. Jordan sank into the couch, the day's weight finally hitting. Daniel sat beside him. "You did well," he said softly. "I'm proud of you." Jordan's shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "Will it make a difference?" Daniel took the question seriously. "Yes," he said, "not as fast as it should. Systems resist change. But this created a real opening." Daniel gestured toward the city lights outside. "Right now, officers are thinking twice. Chiefs are reviewing policies. Lawmakers are drafting bills. And young people are seeing that speaking out can force consequences." Evelyn joined them, taking Jordan's hand. "Change happens when what's been ignored becomes impossible to unsee," she said. "Your face, your words, people can't pretend anymore." Jordan felt comfort in the purpose. His bruise would fade, but the impact wouldn't. He'd found resilience and resolve, turning pain into pressure for accountability. The road ahead would be messy, slow, contested, but he could see it clearly now. In that clarity, he found a way forward. Both the kid who loved basketball and the young man refusing silence. And as the story reached its final beat, the message lingered. Justice isn't handed over. It's demanded. If you stuck with Jordan's story, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I've queued 2 more stories you'll probably like. Take care and stay safe. When safety isn't equal, if you are in your late 60s or 70s, you probably remember a time when a walk home at dusk felt simple. A boy with a ball under his arm, a parent waiting with dinner on the table. Yet for Jordan Carter, that familiar picture twisted into something many of you have seen before. A young black man treated as a suspect in his own neighborhood. Handcuffed, slammed against a squad car, punched while restrained. His only crime was existing where 2 officers decided he did not belong. For older Americans who watch the civil rights movement unfold on evening news, Jordan's story is a painful reminder that progress is real, but unfinished. You know what it means to raise children and grandchildren with the talk about staying calm, keeping hands visible, and surviving the moment. Jordan did everything right and still ended up in the back of a cruiser, bleeding and humiliated. The first lesson is blunt. Safety in America has never been evenly shared, and pretending otherwise only deepens the wound. Power without accountability becomes abuse. By the time we reach our senior years, most of us have learned that character shows when no one seems to be watching. Officers Rourke and Keegan believed no one who mattered would ever see what they did to Jordan. They mocked him, twisted the story on their reports, and treated his bruises as just another night's work. What shook their certainty wasn't a miracle. It was the fact that Jordan's father held power they couldn't ignore. Body cameras were pulled, footage preserved, internal affairs called, and suddenly the same officers who laughed in the patrol car were trying to explain themselves under bright office lights. For older adults who have lived through Watergate, church hearings, and other reckonings, this feels familiar. When authority is left to police itself in the dark, abuse becomes routine. The second lesson is sobering but clear. Power without real oversight will almost always drift toward harm. Accountability shouldn't depend on having a famous parent. It should be built into every badge, every uniform, every decision, using privilege to open the door for others. Many of you have spent a lifetime giving your kids what you didn't have: better schools, safer neighborhoods, more opportunities. Daniel Carter did that, And it still wasn't enough to keep his son from being battered on a sidewalk. But once the truth came to light, Daniel and his wife chose a harder path. They could have handled everything quietly. A private settlement, a closed investigation, no cameras, no headlines. Instead, they brought the story into the open. Jordan stood in front of microphones, bruised but steady, and said out loud what many elders have known for decades. This happens every day to people with no connections at all. The family pushed for criminal charges, public hearings, and policy changes that would protect kids whose parents aren't attorneys general or federal judges. That is the third lesson, and it may be the most hopeful one. Privilege, whatever form it takes, can be used not just as a shield for our own, but as a wedge to pry open locked doors so others can finally step through. The question our generation must still answer. If you are 65 or older, you have seen this country change in ways your younger self might never have believed. You have also seen old patterns return in new clothing. Jordan's bruises will heal, but the deeper question remains for our generation. What kind of system are we willing to tolerate for the grandchildren who walk home after practice tomorrow? We may not march like we once did, and our knees may not love long rallies anymore, but our voices, our votes, our stories, and our insistence still matter. The promise of justice was never meant to expire with age, and neither is our responsibility to defend it. Friends, after walking through Jordan Carter's ordeal and the hard choices his family made, I'd love to hear from you. In your own lifetime, have you, or someone you love, ever felt judged or treated unfairly just for where you lived, how you looked, or the story people assumed about you? What did you do in that moment? And what do you wish you had done? Please share your experience in the comments, tap the like button, and subscribe to this channel so we can keep learning from one another and pushing for a fairer, safer future together.